All right, guys, get a load of this. I wasn't going to make a video, but duty calls. According to Fabian Hoffman, he says, if I was a Russian nuclear strategist today, I would be very worried. You just received proof of concept that Western air and missile defenses can intercept 100% of your tactical nuclear delivery vehicles, including SRBM and BM aircraft, in a time-coordinated, multi-vector attack. What he is saying and what he's issuing with this taunt is that the United States and the NATO alliance are going to continue to push and prod the Russian bear with more advanced weapon systems, because now they believe that they have the the strategic nuclear advantage. Because according to Kiev, all of the missiles that were shot down over Kiev last night, all 20 in fact, included 6 Kinzhal hypersonic weapons. Now we're going to talk about why that's been somewhat debunked, because even the US government itself is saying that they're inspecting damage done to the Patriot missile defense system. Now you wouldn't have damage if all of the missiles were shot down. So we know right off the hop that's absurd. It's ludicrous to suggest that missiles that only a month ago everybody thought were invincible, and in fact have demonstrated themselves to be largely impenetrable, unstoppable before, all of a sudden Kiev is shooting them down left and right like it ain't nobody's business. We're talking about a missile that can go up to 4 times the speed of a bullet, Mach 10, intercepting that with another bullet. It's virtually impossible, but of course we're led to believe that just one Patriot missile battery array was able to neutralize all of these missiles. Okay, now these have multiple missile systems, one Patriot missile battery. I can't remember how many missiles it actually consists of, but it's dozens and dozens of potential interceptors. But the reason why this is bullshit is because we know right off the hop, first Kiev denied that any of these missiles hit, and then later they were forced to admit because video footage showed explosions on the ground from which the missiles had came from. So they couldn't say that, none of the missiles made contact anymore. And then they came out afterwards and they said, well, we need to, get really strict about people posting video footage because you're potentially putting national security at risk. And a lot of people took that as, well, that means that you can't lie about how successful these intercepts have been. What this potentially means is that if it's true that the Russians took out this $1.1 billion Patriot missile system, that means that they have the nuclear advantage. And I'm going to share another piece of information that seems to map on with that. Now get a load of this. All of a sudden, and here's the two stories side by side, the two narratives. I'm not sure if this was a bit Photoshop. This is from the Telegraph. They claim Russia destroys 1.1 billion air defense system in major attack on Kiev. This isn't actually the Telegraph story, but there are many mainstream media sources like The Sun, where they say raining fire, Putin blows up U.S. Patriot missile system protecting Kiev as vid shows sky filled with rockets in merciless blitz. So the mainstream has admitted, even CNN, I believe, conceded that there might be some damage done to this Patriot missile system. So those are the two narratives. And then the other narrative through the pro-Ukrainian Telegram and Twitter channels is that the Ukrainian army shot down 6 hypersonic Kinzhal missiles. They were all shot down by just one missile Patriot defense system. It's a game changer, because now that means that the Russians can't nuke us with hypersonic missiles. So we can continue to push the boundaries. We can continue to throw more and more weapons into this fight, if you believe that narrative. The reason why I don't think that's true, and why I think the Russians may actually have destroyed the Patriot missile defense system, the United States' most advanced missile defense system, so we think, is this assuming that the United States gave the Ukrainians their best equipment? It's possible that they didn't, but or that they gave them some sort of watered down just in case it fell into enemy hands. But this clearly was a test. The United States wanted to test this system out to see how much it could handle, and it looks as though it was shot down. And the reason why is this. Today, U.S. releases nuclear warhead data in a bid to pressure Russia. Disclosure under New START treaty follows Russia's decision to suspend its participation in the nuclear agreement. Why this is so important is because all of the American nuclear weapons are in missile silos in a place where everybody knows where they are. In Russia, we don't know where they are. They could move them around. Yes, they can kind of track them by a satellite. I'm sure they got spies. I'm sure they have other ways of intelligence gathering to knowing where their mobile missile ICBM platforms are at any given time. But since the suspension of the New START treaty, Russia no longer has to officially share that information with the United States. So is this oddly timed gesture of the United States to bring Russia back to the table by saying, hey, here's all our nuclear missiles, this is what we got, and you just got to take our word for it? Is this because they know now that the Russians are the ones who have the strategic advantage, that these hypersonic missiles have defeated the United States' best missile defense system? Is that why they're coming back to the bargaining table? Is that why they have somewhat relented in the past month, and it's been Britain and it's been France who is pushing the envelope with sending longer range missile systems, sending fighter planes. They're talking about 4 or 5 squadrons of fighter jets, of F-16s, 40 F-16s potentially, that Ukrainian fighters are being trained on right now as we speak. So something big is going on. This clearly was a test. All of these weapon systems in this proxy conflict, this is the first time in a long time that the United States and Russia have been putting their best weapons up against each other and seeing what happens. And this might not seem like a big event in the grand scheme of things, but it could quite possibly be pivotal in either direction. If the Russians were able to neutralize it and damage it. Now, if they're admitting that it was damaged, there's a good chance that it's non-operational. There's a good chance that they destroyed it, if they're going to admit that. But just the simple fact that the Ukrainians have the audacity to claim that they shot down every single missile is incredible. That they would have the gall to suggest such a thing. It's also counterproductive for them, because it shows that they're outgunned. If this is in fact false and missiles did take out the Patriot system, there's a balance between talking tough and appearing strong when you're in fact weak and getting more aid from Western countries. Because now, if Western countries think, oh, well, you got a Patriot missile defense system, it can just shoot down anything. Kinzhal missiles, Zircon, whatever, Avant-Garde, doesn't matter. We can shoot it all down. You don't need our help anymore. So I'm curious to know what you guys think about this, because a lot of these things really, really are concerning as they're happening all on the same day, especially this taunt from Fabian Hoffman, because you know that this Patriot versus hypersonic missile fiasco is a microcosm for a larger strategic conflict, because the winner of this case, if you will, is going to determine the outcome on a larger scale. We know that the Russians have moved more of their nuclear bombers to the Kola Peninsula up there in the north, across from Finland. We know that there's been all manner of increased strategic activity on both sides, whether that be in the form of reconnaissance planes, close brush-ins, intercepts, the whole 9 yards. We know that the situation is intensifying behind the scenes. So are these little isolated incidents, are these just trial runs to see who is going to come out on top? To see, okay, it took them 6 Kinzhal missiles, even though the Russian Defense Ministry denies even shooting that many Kinzhal missiles, to take out one of our Patriots. You weigh the attritional rate of that. Okay, Patriot system costs $1 billion. If you can destroy the whole system, that is, because these things are going to be spread out. So just because they targeted part of it doesn't mean they destroyed all of it. So you have to weigh the attritional rate of these things, I presume. And then, of course, there's the actual ability to neutralize, because it's all about winning a first strike nuclear war. Whether we want to admit it or not, these are things which have been war gamed at the highest level because they know it's a possibility and they know the other side is doing the same, okay? So it's very concerning that all of these things are happening on the same day, and that the United States is saying, oh, here's our nuclear data, can you get us ours? And apparently 3 Russian hypersonic missile scientists jailed for treason. This is according to the Moscow Times, which is a very pro-Ukrainian, pro-Western publication, I should add, contrary to the name. And this is why you should always be skeptical when you're hearing, even Russia Today, or you have to be very skeptical when it comes to how they title things. It's just like food. You might think that Nature's Best is a great brand and that it's natural and organic, but it probably isn't. Same thing with the Moscow Times. It's not independent news from Russia. It's actually a British-funded publication, I do believe. Anyways, so that's concerning, to say the least. And you can see how they've moved this Russians with Attitude post, which is a Russian propaganda, because anything that is trying to be objective or representing that side is just always propaganda, which in some cases it probably is, which is why we try to be objective. We try to look at both sides of things. It says 100% interception rate to okay, it failed, but the Patriot wasn't hit, to a Patriot system was likely damaged but not destroyed, to a whole Patriot battery was wiped out pipeline. It's possible. It's possible. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it's possible because we know that CNN is assessing potential damage of Patriot missile defense system following Russian attack near Kiev. Imagine $1.1 billion up in smoke. Just like the hundreds of millions of dollars worth of weapons that were destroyed in that massive mushroom cloud the other day. Boy, is the defense industry foaming at the mouth. Shoigu says, and this is a Russian translation, the daggers, as they call these Kinzhal missiles, we do not launch as many as they shoot down. So how could you shoot down 6 if we didn't launch 6? And of course, you need to understand that when they send a volley of missiles like this, there's going to be a whole bunch of decoys at the same time. So it might look like a Kinzhal missile. It might not have all the innards of a Kinzhal missile. Something else to keep in mind. Now, Russia, on the other hand, claims that it shot down 7 Storm Shadow missiles in a day. Now, this is believable because these are not of the same caliber as a Kinzhal missile, and Russia has a multi-layered, arguably, depending on who you listen to, a far more advanced missile defense capability when you're talking about S-400, S-500, which I don't think they have deployed or in and around that region right now, but just a multi-layered missile defense system. So this is kind of believable. And is that taking attention away from that? Now we have Macron follows Britain by sending more missiles to Ukraine. What a surprise. What a surprise. We have the Russians saying, you know what? Our defense products are quadrupling in 2023. But where are all these defense products? Are they just talking about the missiles that they've been shooting? Because the Russian military hasn't been doing a whole hell of a lot. It's been the Wagner Group. So what are they planning with all of these weapons? These are things we got to think about. And you can't just rely on the mainstream. Look, somebody wrote something on the channel yesterday, and I made a mistake in, I was talking about antibiotic longevity. And if you go and you do the research shelf life extension program, they'll say that the majority of medications, like 90%, you can use them after the expiration dates. That's from the US government now. And I think I said something off the cuff about doxycycline. I always say in those videos, don't listen to anything I say, go and trust a physician. And there may be some complications with that particular medication in terms of toxicity, but it's still, you can find studies that contradict that. Anyways, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but in that same comment, they said, yeah, and I couldn't even find this explosion that he's been talking about. It's all over the news, just not the news you're watching, because they don't want to report on it. They don't want people to know that hundreds of millions, possibly up to 2.2 billion, worth of weapons just went up in smoke just like that. They got to control the narrative, okay? Which is why we're on borrowed time here with this channel. So soak it all in while you can. We may have to start considering, even though YouTube has been very good to us, I'm not saying that, like, you know, we know how to walk the line in a lot of ways. We try to be objective, but there's some things that are just so blatantly disinformative. I mean, to say that you shot down everything, and clearly on video, we have video footage showing explosions that probably say like, oh, that was just a misfire, you know. They try to gaslight you into thinking that you're the crazy person. And this, in fact, is making the national security system worse for the Ukrainians, because you're pretending you're stronger than you actually are. Now, you can talk about the advantages of emboldening the population to continue to support the conflict as a necessity, as in the ends justify the means, so to speak. But in a short-term sense, it's not good. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm not sure if I put my autofocus on there, if we're focusing in and out. I apologize for that. I just want to say about this AI thing. Something doesn't seem right about that. And, excuse me. This was just weird. Usually, when they do these Senate hearings on, you know, the big tech guy gets in front, it's this, you know, the big tech guy is demonized and he's put in the hot seat. These guys were way too buddy-buddy today. I'm talking about Sam Altman of OpenAI. Okay, so he goes up in front of Congress and he says, hey, you know, don't worry, we want you to regulate this industry. We really, really want you to regulate this industry. That should raise red flags right from the gates. Why would anybody, out of the goodness of their heart, because of course this guy's not there to make money, and Sam Altman, if you didn't know, is a doomsday prepper. He has a bug out location. He's ready for SHDF. We've done videos on that before. Anyways, and I'm not saying he's necessarily a bad guy, I just think he's a businessman. He even got into a suit for this one. Now, I went looking on the internet to see if I could find somebody who could articulate what I was feeling about this whole situation a little bit better. And I came across just some random comment on some random forum. I think it was on Reddit. And this person put it very, very well. And if you want to know where this comment, where I got it from, you can just type in a sentence or two of what I'm about to read you, and you'll be able to find it. But this sums it up perfectly, okay? We need to make sure that AI as a technology isn't controlled by a small number of corporations with connections to the governments. This is why OpenAI wants the government to come in and regulate, right? To expound, this just seems like a power grab to me to lock in the lead and keep AI controlled by a small number of corporations that can afford to license and operate the technologies. Obviously, this will create a critical nexus of control for a small number of well-connected and well-heeled investors and is to be avoided at all costs. It's also deeply troubling that regulatory capture is such an issue these days as well. So putting a government entity in front of the use and existence of this technology is a double whammy. It's not simply about innovation. The current generation of AIs are scary to the uninitiated because they are uncanny valley material. So this guy's arguing that it's not as scary as it seems yet. But beyond impersonation, they don't show the novel intelligence of general artificial intelligence just yet. It seems like OpenAI and Microsoft is doing a lot of theater to try to build a regulatory lock-in and lock in their short-term technological advantage. This is exactly what I was thinking, but I could not articulate it in the way this person was. It's a smart strategy, and I think Congress will fall for it. And this was a very cordial meeting. There was no real hard questions asked. Sam was like, yeah, please regulate us, all this stuff, talking about how scary it was and how potentially, it was going to be doomsday and all this stuff. It's a smart strategy. I think Congress will fall for it, but goodness gracious, we need to be going in the exact opposite direction, this person says. Open source, core inspectable AIs that millions of people can examine and tear apart, including and especially the training data and process that create them. Regardless, other nations are not going to necessarily follow this lead. So even if they were to just regulate, all this is going to benefit is big tech. It's not necessarily going to benefit, you know, the arms race that is about to ensue or is ensuing as we speak between China and the United States and other big players in the AI space. AIs that millions of people can tear apart. And if you think this isn't an issue, I wrote this post before, an hour or two before I managed to take it live because Comcast went out at my house and we have no viable alternative competitors in my area. We're about to do the same thing with AI, but instead of internet access, it's future digital brains that can control all aspects of society. So are they trying to cut the legs off of the rising stars in the AI sphere by making it so that you need to get a license or you got to go through all sorts of checks and balances and red tape and hoops in order to prove that you're worthy of having these digital brains? This is how the elite are going to control the AGIs that they create, and they're going to gate and prevent others from replicating this technology. Anyways, we're going to be talking with an artificial intelligence expert on this topic in the not so distant future, so stay tuned for that. I just wanted to share that information with you guys because this whole hypersonic versus Patriot missile battery is really a microcosm of what's to come. This is a testing ground to see who really has the strategic advantage, and that's the only reason I think they ever sent one of those systems into Ukraine, was for that specific purpose. Now, somebody is lying. The Russians say they destroyed it. The Americans say, well, it might be damaged. I'm leaning towards it was probably damaged. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Out of this skirmish, who came out the victor? What was the attritional rate of both sides? I'm interested in hearing your guys' thoughts about this in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.